In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to create a function definition. Actually, we'll create two function definitions, a very simple one and then one that's a bit more complex. So let's start a new Python program. We're going to call this functions1.py. To create a function in Python, you start with the keyword def for define. That's followed by the name of the function. Every function must have a name, except for a special class of functions called anonymous functions. So this first function we're going to create is used to square a number, so we're going to call it square. Following the function name is an optional list of data called parameters that will be supplied to the function. They're optional because you can have functions that don't require any data being passed into them. But because we're going to square numbers in this function, then we do want a number to square, so that will be our parameter, a single piece of data, number. After the list of parameters, then we have a colon to signify that we're moving into the function body. So we indent into the function body. The square function is an example of a function called a value returning function. We call it value returning because we're passing a number into the function definition, and the function definition returns the value of the number squared. So that's why square is called a value returning function. And all value returning functions have to have what is called a return statement. In this case, that will be the only statement in our function body. And all we do to square a number is multiply it times itself. So that's what we're going to return. We're going to return the parameter number times itself. And that's the end of our function body and the end of our function definition. So that was a very simple function to create. Now let's look at a little more complex example. This time we're going to write a function that counts the number of vowels in a string. So the name of our function is going to be numVals. I like to make my function names somewhat mnemonic, but not too long. And then the parameter, or the piece of data that we're going to work with, will be any string, however long of a string of characters we want to use to count vowels. So we follow that by the colon to signify the beginning of the function body. Now this time we have to do quite a bit more coding than we did for the square example. First thing we want to do is make sure that all of our characters are in the same case, so we're going to lowercase the string first. So the first thing we're going to do is call the built-in function lower to make sure all the characters are lowercase. The next thing we need to do is create a variable to store the count of vowels. So we have a variable count and we'll set its initial value to 0. Then we want a loop to loop through the string so that we can count vowels. So we'll have a for loop and we'll say for I in range the length of the string. And inside the for loop we're going to look at each letter of the string. So that's string sub I, and compare it to one of the vowels. So if string sub I is A, or string sub I is equal to E, or let's move down to the next line, and to do that we need a backslash right here. Or if string sub I is I, or string sub I equals O, or, and then a backslash because we're dropping down to the next line, string sub I is equal to U. If any of those is true, then we want to increment count by 1. And here I'm going to use the more efficient composite assignment operator plus equal, which is just shortcut for saying count is equal to count plus 1. I've avoided using composite assignment operators up till now, but now you should be comfortable enough with your coding that we can use little shortcuts like that. So we're simply going to loop through the string and check to see if the letter that we're on is a vowel. If it is, then we're going to increment our count by 1. And that's all we have to do until we're ready to complete the function. So that will go outside the for loop. So we go back to the level of the for loop where we began the for loop, and we type return count. So the main work of the function occurs right in this highlighted code. And once we've looped through the complete string and we've counted all the vowels, then we can return that count, and that will be the return value of the function. So with that, we're ready to end this lesson on function definitions. And let's move to the next lesson where we're going to talk about how to call the function to have it do the computation that we've defined for it.